Well, I want to thank everybody. People keep showing up, and I appreciate that. Like I said earlier, coming in, let me get on the mic so my voice doesn't get lost. I've been doing a lot of working this week, so my voice is a little crazy. Thank you again for showing up. I really thought that not that many people were going to show up on the last day, and with DMC happening, I thought, what the turnout was, so I'm very excited, and thank you for being here. So this is the Sound Reinforcement Seminar. I want to cover some general topics, and a lot of the stuff that I talk about is from general questions that come up on the internet all the time, and nothing wrong with that, but I want to get into some little detail stuff, and obviously if you have questions about stuff, please feel free, ask away, because that's what I'm here for. So sound reinforcement, yeah, it's really, even though we do mobile DJ, I know there's AV companies that have attended this seminar, that's what we do. It really doesn't matter if you're doing a backyard, party for your cousin, or you're doing a Sweet 16, or you're doing a corporate event, or whatever, it's sound. That's what we do. And part of that responsibility, if you will, is to make sure that you bring the right rig for the gig. You have to have the right tools in place. And I know it's a little easy sometimes to just say that, because I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been doing sound for, oh my God, probably close to 3 decades. And I've learned a lot doing it. I continue to learn a lot, because there isn't, there's, sound is a very, what's the word I'm thinking of? A very,
subjective.
Well, it is complicated, but it's a very thankless job, because when it's bad, everybody knows it's bad. You don't have to have a degree from the Berkeley School of Music to know sound is bad. Everybody can figure out what's bad. Good is people walking out going, hey, I had a good time. You're lucky if 1 or 2 people come to you and go, hey man, you did a good job. Like honestly, I gotta catch up with the guy who, were you guys at Dare last night?
Yeah.
And let me tell you, first of all, the sound system was bananas. And I'm not even saying that because I do stuff with RCF. I'm probably one of the few guys, I'm gonna tell it the way it is. That system was bananas. That was the top of the line RCF, and they had that sucker humming. The thing that blew me away, being the audio geek I am, was when I did leave early, but I was there long enough to see not Grandmaster Flash, the Furious 5. They performed, they did their thing, and I was losing my mind, because one of the guys was literally like, if that was a speaker, was like, put your hands up in the air. And I'm like, how is this dude not having feedback? I was losing my mind. I'm like, I gotta talk to the RCF guy to find out how the hell he did that. It was just a flawless performance. Yeah.
Did you see the FOH guy wandering? And even when our people were talking, like
right.
Those guys, it was amazing how he was controlling everything.
Yeah, no doubt. That dude gets crazy brownie points and gold stars.
There's a great article, the Guitar Center, if you're on their newsletter.
Yeah.
They talk about how sound guys like us
sure.
are underappreciated, but like you just said, if you don't do it right.
Dude, I'm not trying to harp. It is a thankless job. Again, I'm lucky. I personally, I run. And I was going to get into that. We can, I know one of the questions is, how big a sound, or I've got an event for 50 people or 250 people. How much speaker, how much sound system should I bring? And I can get into that real quick since we're jumping into that, because I've got several systems. Again, I've done it for a long time, so I've kind of dialed into what works for me. And I've got basically baby bear, mama bear, papa bear kind of set up. And my mama bear, which is the middle rig, does a lot of work for me. That's the rig I actually had up, little self-promotion. I did a Monday event at the Claridge at the View rooftop, and I brought that rig, and everyone was like, is it gonna be enough? I'm like, we'll be fine, trust me. And it's just 4 tops, 2 subs. It's a 10-inch 2A top, so basically like a K10, and a pair of single 15 subs, but it's an Nexo rig. And if you're not familiar with Nexo, that's French for very expensive. It's a very boutique, very unique rig, and the reason I got it used, that's another, I could go on half an hour about the positivity, if you will, of used gear, but that's another discussion. That rig has been so instrumental in my success and my ease of mind in being able to execute on multiple levels. And I usually get at least one person going, dude, what was that? That sounded amazing. So again, people know the difference. That, you know, they don't have to get caught up in, were you using JBL, were you using EV, Yorkville, RCF, you know, even some of the higher end stuff like Nexo, Meyer, Martin Audio, which I actually love. That's why I'm rocking the shirt. I mean, those are very high end, and maybe not even DJ stuff, but if you know what you're doing and you know what you want to sound like, when you start getting into that higher end stuff, it really helps you, because it's like you're bringing top shelf stuff that's going to sound amazing and just makes your job easier. It really, really does. That's the advantage, really, when it comes to, I'm not saying everybody needs to have a $50,000, $80,000 sound system. That's easy, because if you got the money, it's a no-brainer. I'm not saying that, but I am saying quality supersedes cheap gear. I mean, that's just, you get what you pay for. In audio world, you get what you pay for. But again, to his point, I mean, I at least get one person saying, wow, that sounded amazing. What was that? And I tell them they don't know what it is, so it doesn't matter. But it does the job. It does the job. And for me, like I said, it's more of a, again, I've been doing this for a long time, so I've developed my ear a certain way. So it does come down to planning. It comes down to what events you do, what clients you work with, how you want to sound like. I've done some studio stuff too, which was immeasurable to train my ear and train my brain into but learning what music sounds like, what instruments sound like, what voices sound like. So when you're in a room like this, or you're in a god-awful gymnasium with glass and cement, you have to have a foundation of what the stuff is supposed to sound like. Then you put your sound system up and you're like, oh, that sounds awful, and you gotta fix it. Well, not so much fix it, but tweak it. So, but again, that's part of the process. So I said about different size sound systems. Let me get into that real quick. So for me, like I said, I got like small, couple medium, and a large system, and the numbers break down for me about, say, 5 to about 75 people. I have a full range pair, ironically, of Martin Audio tops. They're just a 10-inch 2A, really small, but they're so clean. And I usually use those for like ceremony, background stuff, delays. If I gotta fill in someplace, they get about 15% of my work. I do have, and it's passive. I do have most of the stuff I use is passive. I'm not against active. But for me, I just like the way I can control passive better. And it's just a personal choice. I'm not against active. Obviously, probably, I'm in the minority, but 85, 90% of you guys use active, which is fine, not knocking it. One of the reasons for me I don't use active, because my taste is so high. For me to have the quality I want at active, it's like double what it would be for passive. So for me, it just doesn't, I can't justify spending $4,000 on a box when I can get the quality I want at $1,500 in passive. But that's just me. So anyway, so my small system is Martin Audio. My next step up, which is actually active, I have a single LD Systems Maui with a 28G2, and I was actually really happy with it. I got it at an auction. I got it really cheap. And I used it a couple of times. I talked to the LD guy, or the LD Systems guy yesterday about it. And for me, I kind of hit a wall with it with a couple events I did. I was like already in 5th gear, and people were like, oh, you could turn it up. And I'm like, sorry, I can't give you any more. This is all I got. So I ended up coupling it actually with a double 12-inch sub. That's actually passive. And that can handle, I'd say, up to about 150 people in that configuration. And again, the upside, it's super small, super compact. Even with the double 12, I can easily transport it. I put wheels on the double 12, so it's not that big of a deal. But that can handle up to about 150 people. So for the bigger stuff, that can handle up to about 400, 350, depending if I'm indoors. Outdoors is my Nexo rig, which I just mentioned. So that's 4 tops. That's 4 10-inch 2As with 2 single 15s. And like I said, that's my bread and butter. Don't think about it. Plug it in. Let's go. I mean, yeah.
What kind of amps are you using for this?
For the Martins, I do use QSC because for me, QSC bang for buck is the best bargain out there. Honestly, to me. If money were no object, I'd probably go either Lap Groupin or maybe even PowerSoft. But PowerSoft is super expensive, and also the problem with PowerSoft is to get the full power out of PowerSoft. Most of them are 220, and a lot of the venues that I go to don't have 220 drop. So my big rig, which I'll touch on, I actually have a 200 amp distro for that because since you asked about amps, I'll get a little bit more specific on that one. But yeah, so my Martin Audio, I use a PLX 3402, just 1 amp, and it's perfect for that. On the on the Maui system, the hybrid I got, it's a PLX, but it's only a 2402, and I got it bridged. So it's about 2,000 watts to a double 12. In my Nexo, I actually use which slightly pissed me off about QSC, I used a PLD, so it's a 4-channel amp in 1 frame, and each channel is 1,200 watts. So it's almost a 5,000 watt amp. So, and I run all the channels in 4 ohm. So, like I said, 2 tops, 1 channel, 2 tops, another channel, and the 15s are actually 4 ohm.
You just push it.
Yeah, I don't even need to push it. I mean, dude, that amp, I've had that amp now, let's say 5-6 years, easy. Like I say, I was not happy that QSC discontinued them and they went to another direction, but the amp, dude, I've run the loudest that I know. I've had that rig with an RTA meter. I was averaging about 117 dB. I was hitting peaks of 122. And there's a meter on the amp. The amp's got all kinds of DSP and cool things on it. I went to the window to see what it was doing, and when I would hit bass notes, it was maybe pulling 13 amps. And I'm plugged into a 20 amp circuit. So I can run that entire rig off 1 circuit and deliver 5,000 watts in a high execution, high end, high sound, hi-fi system. I love that rig. Love that rig. So, and I say I'm comfortable with that rig till about 300, 350, depending on the room. Maybe 4. I can do outside stuff with it, but not big. Obviously, not big outside. It's more fill, more But like, if I had that system in here, it'd be bonkers. I mean, it's just an awesome rig.
Of the guys in here,
Sure.
how many of us use Howard stuff, and how many of us use amp?
Passive?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, but
Like, 'cause most of the DJs I know are going power.
right, yeah. I mean, I just said that. I mean,
Yeah.
I know I'm in the minority, and I'm not touting passive over active. I mean, show of hands. Well, I said 80-85%, right? I mean,
I have active.
right, yeah. So everybody's like, yeah. Well, and nothing against that, Yeah.
I
Okay.
have powered too, though.
I'm sorry.
I have
passive as well?
I have powered and passive.
Right. And so do I. Well, so do I. But my active profile is really small. and again, I'm not knocking passive. I mean, active. Sorry. I'm not knocking active at all. I mean, it has a place. It most certainly has a foothold in the industry. There's a lot of pros with it. Obviously, it's plug and play. I think to me, for me, it was a cost factor. For me to have the high quality sound that I want and I'm used to, that would be like high-end RCF, high-end Martin Audio, Meyer. Actually, Nexo doesn't make active, so that's another conversation. But I mean, like I said, my ear is kind of super up there. I'm very about what I want to sound like.
See, I've had my passive stuff for a long time.
Right.
So, like you've been in business
Sure.
for a while. So
Right.
I have several in Vegas.
Yeah, certainly is awesome, dude. That's old school stuff. I mean, CV is awesome.
Would you think that like most of the bigger audio production companies that are doing like big concert stuff outside,
Sure.
those people, whatever, they're gonna go with not powered, like, because you can't really. I mean, how many powered speakers do you need? Even if you
I
have,
think
like,
in sure.
That was basically what I was just about to say.
Sure, I think it, oh, go ahead.
I feel like a lot of the DJs and mobile guys are using a lot of powered stuff.
Sure.
Because of the mobility of it.
Right.
Obviously, you're not carrying around big amp racks and
Sure.
stuff like that. It's one unit, pop it up, no problem. But when you're talking about big concerts, now you start flying things, the rigging factor
Right.
and the weight.
Sure.
You don't
Well,
want to
I
fly
mean,
those amps.
We can definitely talk about that. I mean, you know, I just got done conversation like 2 months ago, and it was mind blowing. I got an invite to go to a Martin Audio showcase in Meriwether Post, which is an outdoor venue in Maryland, and they showed off. I mean, I'm not kidding. They probably had $2 million worth of gear. It was not for DJs, you know. But I mean, it was awesome because you're just hearing just these incredible boxes, and that goes into a discussion of whether you use point source, column array, line array. And I know a lot of mobile DJs, you know, they have their column arrays, they have their active speakers, nothing wrong with that. And then, yeah, they'll get a call because they've worked with a client for a couple of years. And hey, I gotta do blah, blah, blah event outside for 1,000 people, or my Evolve's gonna work. No, they're not gonna work. Nothing against Evolve. Love EV. Actually, my big rig, which I haven't talked about, is EV because of cost. I got it used. But anyway, yeah, nothing. It's just, again, right rig for the gig. So when you start talking line array, it really, it gets really complicated. And there's a lot of math and a lot of money involved because at the end of the day, your job is to, again, sound reinforcement. And that means that every person in the space is supposed to hear the same program. And what line array enables you to do is to have the sound in a fixed location, but have wide coverage. And generally, you're talking about big spaces. So with line array, a true line array, like they had at Dare last night, that could have been done with point. Were people here, a great example, a contrast, and no slight to the companies, but actually it's a really good example. I know a lot of y'all say you went to Dare. Did y'all go to the Tasty Tuesdays as well with Scratch Bastard and Buck Rogers? Yeah, okay. So that sound system, which was by DOS, it was fine up to a point if you were paying attention, like I was, huh?
5 rows.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, but I'll be gracious and say 8. Yeah, so this guy knows where I'm going. And when I started, me personally, when I got there as a patron, like, oh cool, this is gonna be awesome. I wanna see up close what's going on. I was about, so if the speaker stack is where this projector is, I wasn't on, and that's on axis. I was off axis and about this far away, so maybe 10 feet away. And it was banging. I mean, that DOS system was banging. I'm not knocking DOS at all. But I found it very curious, and after a point, I was like, this is kind of messing up my hearing. I need to step back. I didn't have earplugs, so I'm like, let me go. And even my buddy I was with was like, yeah, we need to fall back a little bit. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I went back probably a good 20, 25 feet, and the sound ridiculously dropped off. I mean, you could still hear the bass. You could actually probably still feel a little bit of the bass. And if you knew the song, probably subconsciously, you were like, okay, just vibing. But from an audio standpoint, honestly, yeah, my man was just, it fell off. And the funny part is that shouldn't have happened. Because even with that rig being point source, it could have worked. The main reason it didn't work because the stupid stack was on the floor. Had they elevated those tops 3 feet, if that, it would have been at least at people's heads and a slight over it, and everybody in the back would have heard it. But like you said, 5, 8 rows deep, so 20 feet deep, it was like, what's going on? So, I mean, I think that doesn't reflect bad on the sound system, it just reflects bad on the installation. But yeah.
Or maybe it doesn't. I mean, the way that I look at it, and I deal with a lot of venues that have a lot of places around it that don't want to hear that sound. So if you put those tops up in the air,
right.
and you do blaze it all the way out and across, you're dealing with everybody around you. So maybe they did really want to have it there.
You're right.
And that's something I just want to share. So
No, that's a very valid point. Yeah, you're right. It could have been done by design because they didn't want to throw it down the boardwalk out the beach. You're completely right. You know, but from an auditory execution side, the people that were in the back weren't getting the same experience as the people in the front. True.
So a couple things. One, they do have a 10 o'clock sound ordinance, so that's probably
sure. No.
But my question is, can we talk about delay systems?
The what?
Delay systems, speaker delay.
Oh, sure. We can talk about that, yeah.
I just wanted to piggyback off of what he was going at. With that event, right, I just want to know, like, everything else out of the window, what would be your setup, like, idea for that?
What, for the TonyT Tuesday event?
Right, exactly.
Well, not barring sound ordinances and barring, I don't have to worry about the apartment complex, because there are residential. I would have used line array. There's no question I would use line array for that space. Because at the end of the day, if you look at that space, it was kind of a shoebox, which was kind of, for line array, it was like perfect. That's what you use line. I was just going to get into that. I probably would have used a minimum of 6 boxes per side. And again, that's where it starts getting complicated, is when you start looking at line array and how line array works and how to execute it properly. You really got to do the math, because it's about height, how high you put the box, because that determines how far out you throw the box. You know what I'm saying? And then you got to worry, not so much because that's kind of given. With line array, you got wide horizontal coverage. I mean, the smallest box I know is like 110 degrees. You know what I'm saying? So that's going to cover you left, right. That's easy. That's a no-brainer. But where the math comes in is where you got to worry about your height versus your throw. And that's where line array comes in. And that's why you use line array for that. And with the right box, you can steer it. You can literally go into your software and go, I want the top box to hit 80 feet out and drop. I want the next box to hit about 60 feet out and drop. That's how line array works, and it's brilliant. But and I know for most DJs, you're probably not going to, to your point, unless you're doing outdoor festivals where you got 2,000, 2,500 people, and you're going to have bands or DJs or whatever festival you want. Again, my big rig, which I haven't touched on yet, I'm comfortable with about 2,000, 2,500, but it's point source. And I get my boxes up. My top boxes are about 7 feet. The bottom of the top box is about 7 feet up, so it's shooting over people's heads. And it's just what I want, because I designed it to do just that. And I know the throw is only X amount, but that's okay, because that's what I wanted to do, because it's point source. If I want to go bigger, I would go line array, but that's a whole other cost. That's a whole other headache of setup. Again, to do proper line array, then I gotta work on crank stands or lifts. And again, there are like one of the cool things about did you guys check out the QSC L class, the new? Dude, honestly, I think they're a little overpriced, but the math behind, the science behind that box is brilliant. It's brilliant, because if you don't know jack about what I just said, that box solves it for you. You literally can go in there and go, I want this top box to be at 0 degrees. I want this top box to be at 3 degrees. I want this other one to be at 3, the next one to be at 6 degrees down. And it'll show you, this is what we're gonna throw out. And if you gotta add a box or take away a box or you change your configuration, all you do is flip the lever and it does the math for you. It's freaking brilliant. So on that level, that box is amazing. So, but anyway, again, that's where line array goes. And again, it gets down to right rig for the gig. Can you do 2,000? Yeah, I do it. That'll touch on my big rig. So my big rig, which I said, I don't bring it out for less than about 700,000 people. I'm comfortable about 2,000 people with it. It's 6 double 18 subs, 6 12-inch two-way tops, but the tops have 4-inch horns. They will literally rip your head off. The first time I fired it up, I had to dial it down. It's all EV. My subs are MTL2s. My tops are Delta. They're old. They're Delta Max. 1122As, and it's all QSC powered. I've got about 5,000 watts. I got 3 amps going to the tops, and it's about 5,000 watts in the high end. And the rest of it, 2,000 of it is on. Every sub I have has its own amp. Every double 18 has its own amp. And I got they're either PLX 232s or PL 3.4s, and they're 3,400 watt bridged. So each sub gets 3,400 watts. And I can make some noise. It's fun. It's fun. But again, I built that rig for a specific purpose. I built it for dance. I built it for house. That's what I like to play. I can use it. I have used it for live applications, for FOH stuff. But again, it's point source. And I'm to the point with that rig that I can, believe it or not, I can move it myself. I can set it up myself. I usually have 1 or 2 people with me, but if I have to do it myself, it's big enough It's just at the cusp where I can do it by myself. If I need to do something bigger with line array, I'm calling a buddy. I'm not, for me, I'm not making that investment. It's just for me, as a sole operator, it's just not worth it.
My question is, how do you, I've never had to do this yet, but as I grow bigger and
Sure.
bigger events and stuff, if you have, let's say, 4 or 6 tops and you've got a couple of subs, how do you, how do you, link them all to the mixer? Like, can you, daisy chain them all
Sure.
and go into the mains?
Yeah, that's the beauty
You
of,
have,
that's the beauty of active.
8 tops and 4 subs, and you still just daisy chain them all?
Yeah, absolutely.
'Cause
That's
I
the
don't
beauty of
wanna
active.
risk
No,
blowing it.
not at all.
You're doing a
The
small
only
engine
thing
for
you have to
it.
consider on active, which for me is, like I said, is kind of a negative, is the power. AC power, not your audio power. So if you're running, say, 12 active, 16 active boxes, that's a lot of juice.
So put them on separate outlets.
Well, yeah.
I haven't gone that far. I've only done
Right.
5 or 6 tops.
Right. But as far as the audio chain goes, yeah, you can link up 20 boxes. Yeah, you just date, as long as your XLR cable's good and you keep them relatively short, dude, you can daisy chain 15, 20 boxes.
My
Sure.
other thing too is, what's your take on the, this is cable talk now, the Roadhog, I think it is? What's your take on them? Because with Guitar Center, I think they're 50 or 60 bucks for a 15-foot cable.
Well,
how good are they compared to the $30 cable?
Okay, so my opinion on cable is, and again, even there, you get what you pay for. There's no secret that the retail prices on cable in Guitar Center, Sam Ash, all these places, I actually have both in my market, which is ridiculous because Richmond is not a big market. But they make no secret, their profit margin is through the roof on cable. And I've probably made about 85% of my own cable because of the cost. I'm not gonna lie, I have no problem going on Amazon and ordering some shit quick because, poop quick. If it's Monday and I got a gig and I'm like, oh man, I need to nick this adapter. You know what? It'll be here Tuesday. I'm getting it that way, or I'll be by Guitar Center, I'll swing by. But I know I'm paying through the nose for convenience. So as far as quality goes, Roadhog is actually a pretty good cable. I actually do have some.
Gold brand too, I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, I've got Rapco, Horizon, Whirlwind, Roadhog, Proco, all great cables, have no problems with them. I stay away from, I even have some Amazon Basic, that stuff's actually kind of nice. Monoprice I stay away from. But you pay for that premium, you know what I'm saying? Is there a big difference between a Mogami cable that's 80 bucks versus a Pro Hog that's 50 bucks versus a Monoprice that's 15 bucks? Yeah. But is the Mogami at 90 bucks worth it? Probably not in our application. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you do want a good cable. Do you have to pay for it? You should. I would definitely tell you to learn a solder. It's not, if I can do it, especially on cables, save money, buy good Neutrik ends, get some built-in cable in bulk, and you will save a crap ton of money. So, but to your point, there's no secret that their profit margin is astronomical. You pay for that convenience. So you're getting a good cable, but you're paying for it. So
I'm gonna ask the beginner
Sure.
question because I'm in a Facebook group and I was asked this by a DJ. He sent me a diagram of his set of the manual. It was something that came in the manual of the setup. So the question is, and because I'm recording, I'm gonna send it to him because the answer by a professional sound man. All right, he wants to know, do you go? His system is active. He wants to know, do you hook the speakers up and then go to the sub, or go to the sub and the speaker? I told him the sub and then the speaker.
honestly, I think it's personal preference. It really doesn't make a difference because I think the only caveat I would throw in there is where you're on the active sub, where the crossover point is, because a lot of that's fixed. You really can't go, fix that. Right. But it really almost doesn't matter because both boxes have a through. You know what I'm saying? I will say a number of years ago, I did go active when EV did the first gen ELX boxes. And I actually loved them. I actually had them for about a year and a half. To your point, I just happened to go sub up the top. No big deal. And then I would daisy chain as I needed because I had 4 subs, 4 tops. Really, I only used 2 and 2, but every now and then I had something big and I wanted to flex and bring out all 8 boxes. But it was really, and I usually went sub to top, and then I would daisy chain from the top back down to sub and up. So it really doesn't matter because you're kind of fixed with what the DSP is on the back of the box. Doesn't matter who it is. You know, I mean, other more advanced boxes, you can dial in and change the crossover, so that you have to be a little bit more careful about, but most of the stuff that's plug and play really doesn't matter. Okay. It's kind of like, if the cable's short, I'll go to the sub, and the cable's long enough, I'll go to the top and come down. So it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
So it doesn't matter how you really wire the speakers and subs together?
As long as you do it correctly, yeah, sure. I mean, I guess for your chain of thought and your workflow, I mean, I guess it would make sense. So you know if something goes wrong, you know where the signal path is going. So like if you know you're going to the top and then going to the sub, and you do that continuously, and then something is wrong in the chain, you know where it is, because that's how you set it up. But there isn't like, this is active speaker 101, you must set up sub to top, sub to top.
Yeah, because in the manual, it from the picture, it looks to me like it went from highs to low, and I was sitting there.
All of JBL manuals tell you to do that.
Yeah.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, his system was JBL, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, yeah, right.
I think for cord management, I think it's best to go.
Yeah, exactly. So, you
It
know.
looks cleaner.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, so, yeah, sure.
Some of the
So,
power systems allow you to split the signal.
no, you're right. Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
way you go.
Depending on, even JBL, I know they got, the intro series, which is just plug and play, and then you go up to the upper line stuff, you can go in there and dial whatever crossover point you want, whatever slope you want, EQ, delay. And somebody asked about delay. That was the other question. I went off on my big system, so I want to get back to the delay. There was a question over here.
Oh yeah, I had a question. This is a little bit changing gears, but when you're doing a festival or
Sure.
outdoor, 50 people, 200 people, and you're bringing out all your gear,
Mhm.
do you insure your gear through a third-party vendor of some sort, or buy some sort of insurance?
I've been super lucky that usually when I'm doing that, I'm contracted out. So the event space, the promoter, whatever, does that. So I haven't had to worry about it.
Maybe you should still have your own insurance, right? Just
True.
like DJX.
Yeah, I do. But
If something blows and catches on fire, and then you're like, well, it's
we touched a bit about power. I built my own power distro. I've got a 220 power distro that gives me like 16 circuits, 20 amp circuits. So I tie into a tow behind a trailer, and I got my own for the big rig, for the big rig. 'Cause I need 10 circuits to do 25,000 watts minimum. That's just for the system. And then DJ kit takes 1-2 circuits. That's nothing. Put CDJs, controllers. That's stage monitors. I don't usually do the Texas headphones. I'm more concerned about FOH. The front of the house is big, but that takes 10 circuits. Generally, like I said, if you're doing that size of festival, well, I mean, and I've done a few. I'm doing actually one when I get back tomorrow. I'm expecting 1,000 people there, and it's being done through the city, so I'm covered through the city because it's their power. You know what I'm saying? So, but I mean, like to his point, it's not better, it's smart, savvy to have your own as well. But generally,
Just a general feel, does most people have general insurance on all their equipment when they go out to stuff like that? Is there like a general?
well, I think when you start getting into that level of execution, you kind of have to insure yourself because there's more variables. So the more people, I mean, when you're doing a wedding, yeah, you're bound to have a drunk uncle or some butthole that's going to do something stupid. But when you got 200 people, that's what, 1 or 2? Well, you got 2,000 people, exponentially goes up. So you want to cover your butt, in that process,
And testing your outlets.
Sure.
It's a big thing too. Like you got to cover yourself at the beginning too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, on that note, yeah, we can talk about power. I mean, I think that's a lot of areas. I mean, we all see the questions on the air. Oh, I'm doing a beach wedding. I'm doing something on a barn. I'm doing something in the woods. What kind of power battery thing do I need? Or what kind of generator do I need? Unfortunately, it's incumbent on us to know what we're bringing out. And so we need to know what the power draw is from everything you're plugging in. It could be your laptop, it could be a little strobe light, your subs, your tops. You need to know what you're using, what you're plugging in, and then you need to know the power consumption. Not like, I got a speaker that holds 2,000 watts. That doesn't mean squat. That's what the output is. Output wattage has nothing to do with the wattage coming off an outlet. That's two completely different things. And you gotta know that difference so you know you're not underpowering yourself when you're on that beach with a little power thing. You're in 20 minutes and then click because you ran out of juice or there wasn't enough juice to deliver what you needed to do. So please, I can't stress that enough. Make sure you know what you got, how much current, how much amperage is or wattage, do the math, know what that number is, add 20% to that, then you get the right generator, battery pack, J pack, whatever they call them. Then you'll be okay, because then I'll cover your transients.
Do you have like a basic formula that you use? I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
But I'd like to be able to have something that
you have to do the math. Taking my big rig as an example, because I did build that from A to Z, soup to nuts. I was careful about everything I was plugging in, because again, if I'm on a tow behind generator, I need to know how big. I know I can use the smallest one that Sunbelt has, which is I think a 20 or 25 kW. And I forget what the math is and how that breaks down into amps. But I know when I did the math, it was enough. It was enough. Even that small one was enough to give me the 10, 11 circuit, 20 amp circuits I want. Having said that, you also have to bear in mind, I'm glad you brought that up, that you can only top 80% of a circuit. So I forget what the numbers are. I actually did a video for this on DJX, so forgive me for the hardcore numbers. But when you break down the numbers, 15 amps gives you, I forget, let's just keep the numbers round. 15 amps gives you 1,500 watts of AC power. 20 amps gives you, it's more than that, but say 2,000 watts of AC power. That's what the circuit is in numbers gives you. But you're only able to tap in North America 80% of that circuit. So whatever 80% of 1,500, I think it's 1,200 watts, let's just say. And I think for 2,000, it's 1,600 watts. So when you reach that threshold, guess what? Circuit breaker kicks in. And that's by design. You're never gonna get 100% of your 15 amp or 20 amp circuits. That's by design, never gonna happen. That's why you have circuit breakers. So you have to plan for that. For example, my sub-amps take 13 amps. They get their own circuit. I don't have any, so I gotta have 6 circuits just for my subs on my big rig, hands down. If I don't have it, I gotta cut subs out. My top rack on my rig that has like freaking 8 components in it, if I have to, I can power it off 1 circuit, because it's only the mids and highs, with some DSP in there. But I usually use 2 on that rack. So I try to have my power distributed correctly so I don't have breakers going off. And you have to keep that in mind, whether you're doing, like I said, a beach thing, a golf thing, you have no power, you can't run extension cord 200 feet, and you have one of those jackeries, that's what they're called. You have a little battery thing. I mean, they're fine to use, I'm not saying don't use them, but know what you're gonna plug in, know what your power draw is, add 20%, and you're good. Otherwise, you're gonna have a really quiet event, and that's not gonna work.
So 15 amp outlet is like that right there, correct?
That's actually a 20.
Okay.
So
Each outlet or just
No.
the entire box?
no, that entire, so I don't know how they got it wired here, but that's a 20 amp. The big difference between a 20 amp and a 15 amp is when you look at the outlet and you see the face, kind of, the 2 lines with the little, mouth at the bottom. If it's just 2 lines up and down, that's 15. 20's got the little T to the side, like that one. And I will tell you that, believe it or not, the wiring, the guts, there's no difference. The only difference is the breaker. So technically, that could have been a 15 amp with a 15 amp duplex with a 20 amp breaker. It'll still give you 20, but you only plug in a 15 thing to it.
But are all of these on the same?
I don't know that.
Okay, so we don't
Yeah,
know.
when you go to your hotels, you have to figure that out. That's where you come with your little tester. Yeah,
It'll tell me how many amps it is?
No.
$15 at Lowe's.
All that basic tester will tell you is if the circuit's hot. It won't tell you, like, let's just say there's 8 outlets down here. You would think out of the 8 outlets, there'd be 4 circuits, maybe 2 outlets, but you don't know that. All 8 could be on 1 circuit. That's not gonna help you. That just means you got a big extension cord in the wall. 1 circuit with 8 taps. That's, you have to have a separate circuit so for example, you were talking about bringing out eight active boxes.
Yeah.
Most that I've seen active boxes take about 10, maybe 12 amps. So you can get away if you're not stepping the gas and doing your redlining, probably get away. I would want to put each box on its own circuit. That's me. If I had to, you'd probably I don't think you put more than 2 on one circuit because you're going to trip it. Even at 10 amps, because at 10 amp draw, you're pushing 20. Brandon, that's at full, but.
I'm thinking like, let's say a gymnasium with 500 high school kids.
Sure.
I'm thinking, 6 QSC K12s and a couple of small subs.
I mean,
two of
that would probably work, but I would.
One outlet, or I would need to.
I don't know. Oh yeah, you have to. I would go. You got a gig at a high school on Saturday. I'd go on Thursday before and go talk to the school and go talk to the custodian and go talk to Joe Blow that's been there for 30 years and knows. Yeah, I think I want to. You want to know where those circuits are. Separate circuits. Not just just because you go to a high school and there's a stage and there's like 20 outlets in front of you, that doesn't mean you got 20 circuits. That just means you have 20 outlets. So you have to be very cognizant of that, because if not, again, you start plugging in stuff and then you start turning it up or start turning on your lights and like, hey, why'd I just lose half my truss? Why'd I lose my tree? I got 8 subs, only 2 are working now. You got to find that out. You got to find that out. Be it a high school or event space, a hotel, gotta have power. Gotta have power.
I hate to do this because I'm gonna be that guy now, but get a circuit buddy from Colorado Sound and Light. It's called a circuit buddy. It costs you $100. And literally, what?
Circuit Q.
Circuit Q. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And for all of us that are not electricians and don't
Right.
want to go and read a whole board and don't
Sure.
want to test everything, you basically plug it into one outlet, and then you plug a different outlet into it, and it will tell you, yes, that's the same, or no, it's not the same. And then you can make all
That's
your
cool. I didn't know they had a tool like that.
So easy.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
Circuit buddy or circuit Q?
Circuit Q, yeah,
Circuit
but
Q?
Colorado Light
Yeah.
and Sound is the only place that sells it, it's
That's it.
$100.
Yeah.
That's that.
You can go
They'll
on
save
any
your life.
venues and
Yeah.
labeled all their
Especially-
outlets myself.
I actually did that back in April. It was so funny. I actually did that. I had an outdoor festival at a university, and the guy who hired me, I did a walkthrough with him, and I told him, I said, well, you would have a generator, or, do you have shore power? And he's like, well, we have this thing. And there was this outdoor huge circuit breaker panel. I think it was a 200 amp panel, had all these outlets on it. And to his point, I had to come back and I tested each one by going to the breaker. And thank goodness that like the panel was here and they had like little 4-inch boxes around, so I didn't have to go all over the place. They were right there. But nonetheless, I brought my Sharpie, I brought my tape, and I'm sitting there like, okay, this is breaker 9, this is breaker 12. And I was hoping, because each 4-inch box had a duplex in it, I was hoping that each outlet was a circuit, but it wasn't. Each duplex was a circuit. So I was thinking, because they had like 20 breakers, but I only found like 8, which I got away with. Yeah, exactly. So, but that's a cool tool, man. I would love something like that. And for the record, I'm not an electrician. My dad was. I'm not licensed, but I've been around it enough to know you gotta have power.
This is just an aside, but we just did an event. I bought a brand new Bose Pro 16. I plugged it into this venue. I mean, no big deal,
Sure.
right? They had it wired to a
Oh, dude, that happened to me once, and I was living, because I used to work there. It was at the Richmond Coliseum, which isn't even open anymore, and I got hired to do a cheerleading thing. And I'm walking in like, hey, I'm good, I know what to do, blah, blah, blah. And they gave me a rollout little distro, and thank God I had a Furman, bro, because I was livid, because I plugged in the box with my Furman. And in that box at the time, actually I was still running active then. But anyway, I had an outboard DSP rack. And dude, I had a Clark Technic in it. I had a KTEQ, DBX compressor. I still use outboard gear. So I had a decent old, but anyway, I plug it in and I saw poof. And I was like, what the I lost my mind. Thank God the Furman caught it. Because I'm sitting here like, I just lost $2,000 worth of vintage gear that I'm gonna have to hunt for next year to find, because my KT EQ is shit, I love my KT
Well,
EQ.
the good news for me is that
Sure.
the unit was only like 2 weeks old.
Oh, right.
I took it back and exchanged it,
Yeah.
but it blew it out.
Right, wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, to that point, that's why you have those little testers. You'd rather blow a freaking $20 thing from Lowe's that says, oh, and then poof, and oh, that was wrong, and then, you know, so yeah.
But
You
also
know,
never
We didn't know it
straight to a wall.
like.
Sure. No, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, good practice.
Couldn't you go after the venue if they gave you that?
You know, I thought about it. I'll be honest. In my story, I actually did. And I have a good friend of mine that's a DJ/lawyer and very good at both. And I remember, like, you know, hanging my hat with him. And honestly, at the end of the day, what I really lost was the Furman. So it was like, you know, $200, $300 piece. So I mean, on principle, sure, I could have gone after them and sued them for $300 piece of equipment. But for what? I mean, had I lost more, it may have been a different story. But for me, it wasn't worth it. It was just like,
Right, but
yeah.
$300.
Right.
But I'm saying, let's say you did.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I would say yes, because ultimately it's their responsibility to bring the proper power in, you know?
If it's
So,
in your contract.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and I knew that. I mean, I did know that, 'cause I used to work there. They were supposed to have a licensed electrician on site whenever they have clients on premise. So I knew when I plugged in, I should have been good. That's why I had no problem plugging in. But then I found out it was wired wrong. My shit blew up, and they didn't have an electrician on site. They scrambled. I mean, it was ugly for a minute. Events still went on. We did, you know, I wasn't that guy. I was like, hey, you blew up my shit, I'm out of here. You know, I mean, I didn't do that, but because that wasn't the client's fault. I mean, they hired me to do a job, so I had to do it. And thank goodness, all I lost was the Furman. But to your point, and I'm not a lawyer, I would think, yeah, if I wanted to pursue it, like if my whole rig blew up, I probably would. It'd be a different story. But
I remember I pointed that out to a venue, and I had plug-in similar to what you're talking about. And I told the venue, I said, do you understand how this could have really turned out nasty if I didn't test this line out?
well, I mean, again, if a hotel, event space, catering hall is providing you power, that's technically on them. You should do your due diligence. You know, I'm not sitting here saying, hey, willy-nilly, hey, just plug in here and do whatever, and I should be good to go. I mean, in a perfect world, yeah, but it's still a little bit incumbent. I mean, I guess I can say it about myself. I should have tested the circuit. You know, I thought I knew. I would think we're savvy enough in our own markets where we work. We know who's shady, who's not shady. If you work for a Marriott, you should be okay. If you work for some mom and pop place that is kind of scraping together, I make sure I come in with a tester. But that's just me.
I have a placement question about subwoofers.
Sure.
So I have a bigger system, I use a bigger one, which I have in QSC 181s. It still has it.
Yeah.
And they rock. And then I also have for smaller events, I use the new Bose Pro 2s. The problem I'm having with those is I don't know how to place them properly to maximize my sound with those. They're a little bit different than most of the conventional subs I use.
What, the Bose?
Yeah, they're the Bose
Yeah.
P2.
Sure.
They're pretty tall, and they sound really great.
I have heard
They're in
it.
the right spot.
Right.
So do I put them on the ends? Do I stack them sideways? What do I do?
I mean, honestly, in my humble opinion, I have heard them. I don't use Bose. I have a couple buddies of mine that have them, so I've heard them. They're pretty amazing speakers. Bass is omnidirectional, so not to be flipped, but it's almost doesn't matter. It's gonna depend on the room you're in and what kind of configuration you want. Versus, which I know is, I should say kind of, it is important. I know that like the Calmare style over the past 5-8 years has just been through the roof. So everybody looks the same. So everybody has a certain look, not bad or good, it's just reality. So based upon that, how you want to look, because that's a lot of questions too. I got these bass subs, where do I put them? I want them seen, I don't want them seen. People do they're ugly, whatever. So bearing that in mind, from an acoustic standpoint, from a sound reinforcement standpoint, specifically with Bose, is what works. Just put them, I mean, I don't want to be flip about it, but to me, that's what, just put it where it works. Because with the Bose system, it's kind of a proprietary, so it's not like a general, like, oh yeah, just do this. Bose is kind of its own little microcosm, not in a bad way, it's just it is what it is. So you just kind of have to feel it out, you know what I'm saying, per the room, per the event. I would probably, if that was my system, I would definitely couple them, to get more, because you said you have two of them, right? Yeah. So I would couple them to get as much bass presence as I can from the system. But as far as placement, the way Bose is designed, I mean, it populates audio pretty well. And as the audio, immerses from the speaker into the room, it does a very good job of that. So obviously bass does that as well. So I would just play around more with so much placement where it looks good and sounds good, but I would couple them to get the most bass from it. Because like with 18s, not that it doesn't matter, but it's physics, you're moving more air. So even there, like, it's less important, because once you couple them, it's just, do I want them left, center, right, behind, not behind me, but if you have a facade, you put them there. I mean, thank goodness I don't do events that have to worry too much about the aesthetic of it. They just want big booming sound, so it's like, you got big boxes to deal with it. But anyway.
And somebody was talking about the powered setups, when you go off-site, you don't have much electricity. I used a solar power generator from a company called Ford Patriots. Man, that thing,
really?
That thing is great.
I'm even learning stuff, that's awesome. Yeah.
Solar powered.
Really?
You can sit in the sun with your
How much current?
There's $2 grand.
I'm saying though, how much current can you get from it? Do you know? Okay.
I don't know, but it works.
Oh, no, then that's great. Sure.
I would do it for reception, but...
Gotcha. Oh, I got you. Okay. That's cool. Yeah. So probably close to a circuit, which is probably all you would need for a ceremony system anyway. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a good solution. I saw someone else's hand around me before. No? Okay.
Two quick things. One thing was, so I have a K12 or a K8 even. I think my K12 is more of the problem. It's on a speaker stand and it's 5-6 feet up. Every once in a while it'll start going like that, and I can't is there something to put up into the stand or into the speaker to keep it from literally going like that?
Gaff tape.
I didn't know what the best idea.
Yeah, multiple speakers.
Call QC. I'm just kidding.
It's frequently annoying. It's not at every event.
I mean, I'll be honest, man. It actually happens to my boxes. I love them, but they piss me off. I've got ultimate stands, like for example, for my next array that I talked about. So I can, and I also have sub poles. But the sub poles that I have are actually carryovers from my EV boxes, so they're a little short. I do have the Gator, I guess they're the, what do they call them? The
hydraulic.
Yeah. And they're awesome because once you put them down and lift the lever, it then goes straight up and it gets at the height I want. But it does sometimes tend to lean. It's engineering. I mean, other than, like you said, putting some gaff tape in there and kind of tightening the hole, there's no really a magic solution. Not that I know of. Somebody here can fill me in.
K&M makes a device that goes on the top of the pole.
Oh, like a sleeve?
That
Oh, that's cool. See, there you go. There you go.
You don't have to tell me that.
There you go.
The other question was, how do you know how to mic, or I guess certain musicians, like let's say for a cocktail hour, you have a harpist or some other musicians. How do you necessarily mic them?
Well, that gets into more, like 201, 301 sound, and personal preference, which I have experience in. I mean, a harpist, in my experience, that's a pretty specialized instrument. So you're not just going to grab like a 58. You could, but to get the full spectrum of what a harp can do, they have special mics, and those are not cheap. You ain't going to Guitar Center and picking that up off the shelf. So talking basic like guitars and basses and even horns, I mean, you can get away with, I mean, if you're not doing stage production, you're not doing festivals, you're not doing live sound, without getting too overly complicated with it, because there again, you start talking about personal preferences and how you want to mic a certain instrument. So you're going to use a cavalcade of mics, a potential cavalcade, unless you know.
If it was a couple hundred people, it was a big thing.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, if you, I did the biggest band I've ever mic'd myself was a 19-piece band, and like 12 of them were horns. It was just insane. There was a percussionist and a harmonica guy, and you had to use, not everyone had a specific mic, but it wasn't. Personally, I like Audix mics on some horns. I just like the sound character of AUDIX. No, AUDI, Audix. I love Shure. Shure for vocals for me is hands down. I love Beta 87s. That's a fantastic mic. But I mean, Shure's pretty industrial. I mean, let's be real, you know. I mean, you can't look at a video and not see a 57 on something or 58 on something. It's pretty universal because it works and you know what it sounds like. And you know if something sounds wrong, you know how to fix it. You know, I mean, it's pretty, I mean, that's a whole kit. And then, you're right. And then doing drums is a whole other conversation, dude. I mean, I can be here for 30 minutes talking about that. Audix makes a kit, Shure makes a kit, Audio Technica AT makes a kit, everybody makes a drum kit. You know, how elaborate and how concise do you want to be miking drums? You can use 5 mics, you can use 15 mics on a kit. You just don't know how big the kit is. You want overheads or not, top snare, bottom snare, 2 mics on the bass drum. You know, it just depends on what kind of big sounds you want. Like, watch some of the videos. You want to get your mind blown? Watch Dave Rat, bro. Dave Rat on YouTube. That dude is the sound guy basically for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and he's been doing it for like 20. Dude, some of the stuff you talk about, I think I know, and I'm like, what did he just say, bro? Blows your mind. And it's like, after you think about it, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, but I mean, he's on another level. He's like the Brian Wilson of sound, bro. This guy has been doing stuff. He builds his own stuff, but it works. And he, again, is going for a specific sound. And he does everything in his power to get that sound out of his head, out in the space. Dave Rat, R-A-T-T. Yeah, his videos are insane. I mean, you want like crazy to learn about sound, that dude's on another level. He's on another planet. And it's cool stuff, because he kind of breaks it down to you. And it's on, because he does big tours, but he kind of breaks it down and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And you can pull from it and be like, well, try it here. Hey, he's right, it works, that's cool. You know, yeah, he does some really, really cool stuff. I see a hand right there. Yes, sir.
I've never actually coupled my subs if I stack them.
Okay.
Holes. I think that's more just for the look.
Sure.
But what benefits do you get from coupling that versus just the look?
Well, you do get a benefit. Right. Sure. So they say roughly every time you couple a pair, you increase 3 dB. So if you got 2 single subs and let's just say you're pushing out, whatever, 90 dB of bass, SPO. If you couple them together, by math, you should get 93, which is a significant increase. Let me tell you, we could touch on decibels here in a minute. So that's why that argument or whatever path is advantageous. If you have multiple subs, even just more than one, coupling them, that like what Jason was just talking about with his Bose stuff, you couple them is a benefit. The only negative to it is aesthetic, really. And without getting too complicated, a lot of active boxes, which again are very cool, have the aspect of the cardioid, which what it does is, I think having the ability to have a cardioid system is very cool, but for DJ world, I think it's almost, I shouldn't say useless, for me it's useless, because in live band it makes complete sense, because you want to kill that stage noise. Like I touched a minute ago, I did an event with Martin Audio, and they literally had 19 double 18s for this event to just show off their wares. And the guy I was talking to told me each sub had a 10,000 watt amp. So do that math. And it sounded phenomenal. Out of those 19 boxes, I want to say it was like 9 of them were set cardioid. And they were coupled, so they had a line at the bottom and then a stack every other one going the opposite way. They were cardioid. So the amazing part was when you're in the audience, that hit. It sounded amazing. They let you walk on stage and it was like 30 dB cut. All that bass was not on the stage, it wasn't slapping back. So that's the advantage of cardioid, and it's fantastic. From a DJ perspective, unless you're doing a festival, you're doing a prom or something, I don't really see that benefit. You want as much bass energy forward to the audience as you want. For a band, it makes sense. You don't want all that slapback, But I think, to answer your question, if you can couple your subs and get away with it aesthetically, do it, because it does give you extra bump.
That's the question, since it's the one make it corduroy, so let's say doing a prom or something like that, I don't really want all that bass.
Well, if you don't want it, use it. I'm not saying don't use it. Yeah.
So you
It's not that when you do a cardioid setup, it's not that it takes away bass from the front. It cuts the bass behind you. So if you have a system that's boomy and you think when you're doing your thing it's too boomy for you because you're behind it, by all means do it.
So what would you recommend? Is there a certain speaker?
Well, sure. I mean, a lot of the active speakers, I mean, a lot of them, I guess they're upper, say midline, above average, more expensive ones have that deal. So it's not just like you can buy any active sub and point one forward and one back. I'm cardioid. No. There's math to it, there's DSP to it, there's delay to it, and there is a formula. I don't know what it is, but you can figure it out. But to do it, you've got to have processing. You can't just, the advantage of an active system, say like I know off the top of my head, the ETX line, they have a setting in there. You turn it on and it says, I've got 3 ETX boxes. 2 of them are going forward, one's in cardioid mode, you point it back, and boom. You step in the front, it's banging. You step behind it, you're like, hey, I can talk. This is awesome. I don't have to scream. And, so if that's what you're looking for, you just have to get, without doing math and getting crazy DSP, you gotta get a box that'll do it for you. Exactly. Yeah, I'm assuming they do as well. Oh, they don't? Oh, yeah, well, if you want to do that and not get new boxes, you got to buy a DSP box, like a DBX, whatever, drive rack. I'm pretty sure they have. Yeah. Well, now you have an excuse to use it. Dig it out and plug it in and play around with it. Yeah. I think most drive racks have a cardioid setting in it, and if not, you can get one. You can get some really expensive ones that are like $2, $3. I'm not even saying you should go that route. We're talking like touring stuff. But I'm pretty sure you can find a decent DSP box for under $800 that'll do what you want in cardioid.
I think I have it. But it's just thinking that 266, I think that's the number.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I'll say if you're going to point away, you got to use a monitor.
I'm sorry?
So if you're going to point it away, you got to use a monitor.
Point what away?
Say the monitor speakers you can hear.
Oh. I've been DJing so long, and it's so funny. I had this conversation with some buddies of mine. I actually don't use a monitor. That's just me. When I initially learned, I was using a monitor, and when I started getting into clubs back, oh my God, in the 90s, a lot of the places I worked at didn't have it, and it was so frustrating, and I was being lazy. I didn't want to bring my own, because it was like, more gear, F that, I'm not looking at more stuff, so I taught myself to mix in the headphones. As long as the mixer let me monitor or whatever, so I'm pretty, like, if I have it, I'll use it. But even for my setup, I don't set up alone.
The problem is I get way too loud.
I hear you. It was so funny, it was an afterthought. The event I did Monday, I was so, like I said, I'm so in no monitor mode. I called a buddy of mine, I'm like, man, do you mind if you bring a monitor? Because I'm pretty sure you're gonna need one. I don't need it. And every other DJ needed it but me. So that's funny. I know this gentleman, real quick, I know you talked about, you wanted to touch on delays. So that's a great question. Delay stacks, again, it kind of get into math, and it's kind of dependent on the room you're in and the space you're in. Obviously, if you're in a very boomy room where it's a lot of concrete, a lot of brick, a lot of glass, you have a big space to cover if you're using point source or even column array. I mean, they only go so far. So you kind of add additional speakers, delay speakers, right. And to do it properly, where the math comes in, there is a formula where you have to figure out where your start point is, how far back it is because of the way the waves travel, and then you delay the far speaker so when the person receives the audio, they're receiving it at the same time. Now, I have done delay stacks myself. There's this one room in Richmond, just this ginormous room that's like, I'm not kidding, I think it's almost 200 feet wide by 600 feet long. And it's all glass with like a 40-foot ceiling. It used to be a train shed. They renovated it for conversation like 5 years ago, and they use it for big events, and they can do with pipe and drape. So it can be as little as 200, it can be as big as 4,000 in there. And I did do one event where I did have to propagate speakers, or I used, oh my God, I think it was like 28 speakers. Yeah. And I didn't delay them, only because, and it did kind of work in that scenario because, and they were all point source, they were all on the ground, and I kind of spread it all the way around because pretty much anywhere you walked, the audio was coming at you at the same time. So I kind of, that's the beauty, I think for me, the beauty of when you do multiple speakers. If you're doing it like very far away, you gotta do the math. You know what I'm saying? I was fortunate enough that even in that big space, I had them spaced out just right, that even though one speaker was here, one speaker was over there, they weren't coming at you too much different. You still heard the program at the same time.
I'm looking at some of the true diversity stuff.
Yeah.
Like Alto has one, and I think Cine has one.
Sure.
And I just didn't know if anybody had any feedback on either one of those.
I used one of those systems on New Year's because I was on multiple levels. I did a venue, and I know that Neutrik made this system. What's it called? They don't even make it anymore, and it blew me away because I remember reading it in like Pro Sound Forum or something, Exient or something like that, and they discontinued it in the U.S. because it was right. They built it right before the 600, 600 hertz, thing where you bought. Yeah. So it eventually worked at that frequency range, and every review, and it wasn't cheap. I mean, like a transmitter was like $2,000, and then each receiver was like another $1,000 or something like that. So it wasn't cheap, but it was everywhere I read about this thing was like this was the shit. I mean, they used it for broadcast, they used it for the Olympics, they used it for all this stuff, and then all of a sudden it went away. I think you can still get it in Canada and in Europe, but anyway, to that point, that's kind of going over the top. You do the delay there. I was talking about audio delay. The delay for you have to make sure, because it's basically RF. So you want to make sure you got a decent line of sight between the transmitter and receiver. A buddy of mine, Lou Paris, just recently did something. I think he told me he went 300 feet with that thing, which is incredible. I mean, which is great. And I think it was line of sight though. There wasn't. So like you do something downstairs, upstairs, you still have to have some kind of, it can't be a completely closed off floor. I mean, I have used wireless mics where the receiver is like downstairs, and so you just have to, honestly, you have to try it out because the different building materials are going to affect the transmission frequencies, whether you're going through wood, brick, glass, concrete.
Bodies.
Exactly, bodies, absolutely.
My application would be like in a big room.
Sure.
Or in Philadelphia, we do a lot of the races, the running races.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
in the festival area.
I would then be I would make it incumbent to check, especially in your larger markets. Richard, for me, I don't do that much. I mean, I got wireless mics, but I really don't do too much wireless. But the people who do are like insane, and rightfully so, because you start getting cross frequencies, and you don't want cross talk, and you don't want the kid's baby monitor to come in or some other person's phone or something. I mean, you get less of that now with people operating in the 400, 500 megahertz range, but you still have to be cognizant of what frequency range. With that stuff, which I think is more with the 2.4 gig range, actually, Lou, again, actually just did a really good article. That bandwidth, I don't like. He made it really kind of eloquent and explicit. It's a very congested range. It's still used, it's open, it's a great tool, but I think in some place like Philly, I'd be careful, because again, everybody's using it. They use it for basic Wi-Fi, they use it for the stuff we're talking about. I mean, it's very congested. So I would definitely, at minimum, do like a dry run or a test, you know what I'm saying, to make sure that it even does what it's supposed to do, and if not, you may want to look at a little more expensive, a little more pro option. That'd be my suggestion. So, yeah.
I got a G4 wireless system from Sennheiser. They're actually in-ear monitors.
Right.
And that works great.
Absolutely, yeah. I've actually, a few times I have done wireless. I've repurposed the Shure wireless with body pack and line out and line of sight. I'm good.
Just as a practical application.
Sure.
I was looking to do something with 600 people on a tailgate.
Okay.
Like, what type of special consideration
outdoors?
Yeah, it's outdoors.
And how many people?
Yeah, I said, 600, man.
Outdoors, 600. Okay, so my next question is, what type of events? Well, like, what type of music? Are we talking like R&B, hip hop?
Oh yeah, sure. So it's top 40.
Gotcha. And it's gonna be lit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how lit it's gonna be.
I'm just saying, well, 600 people, 600 people, I would assume you try to have a lit party.
Yeah, we're trying to have it, but
My humble opinion, you need more rig.
Yeah,
you need more rig.
I inherited it, and I'm very constrained in terms of budget.
Gotcha.
And then I'm also constrained because I probably have maybe access to 2 generators that's provided.
I will tell you, man, again, getting back to the power thing, I've gotten burned. Like I said, now, especially with my big rig, I demand you get me a Sun Belt or this ain't happening, because I can't tell you how many times, even if you have multiple generators, because I've done it, you don't want to do that. Because even, you say you have 3 small generators that quote unquote add up to one big one, the power from there really isn't clean, because it's being generated by a motor. You know what I'm saying? It's not the same shore power that you're gonna get off the wall. So I would if you haven't done this before, my recommendation is get somebody, I'm not saying you need a tow behind, but do not do like a bunch of baby 3,000 watt generators. You do not want the headache, trust me. So you make sure they get you a decent sized generator. Again, do the math, figure out what your wattage is, and get 20% bigger, and you should be good. And it doesn't have to be, like I said, a tow behind, but make sure you get an adequate generator. That's 1. And 2, 600 people outside, bro. I ain't gonna lie. You gonna need to flex. You gonna need to flex a little bit. I mean, two subs, even if they're single 18s, but I don't think they are. You said they're 15s? Yeah. Like I said, yeah. I mean, my next rig is 2 single 15s, and I've done outside stuff with it. But and even for like that type of people, but it was like Phil. It was, I'm not trying to bang them over the head. It's like we want coverage, we want clean coverage. That rig can do that. You want bang, I'm bringing out my double 18s. It's just again, what performance are you trying to give to the people that are there? And like the event I'm doing tomorrow in Richmond, it's a gay pride, thing. So they want their club shit. So I gotta give them boom. And I'm happy to do it, but I can't roll as good as my next rig is. That rig ain't gonna cut it. It's not gonna give them the experience. It's a great rig. It sounds like, I already said, it sounds like $1 million, but it ain't the rig for that gig.
Well, I'll say that since it's an inherited thing, we are leveling up from the last person that did.
Well, that's cool. That's good.
So they're not gonna be like, they're gonna say this.
And honestly, let me add this, because I mean I'm being light, and hopefully you're taking it as I'm not
No, sorry.
Oh, cool. When I say you have to flex, but the reason you want to approach it like that is because you don't want to get in a situation where you don't have enough rig. You know what I'm saying? That's another. You want to have, again, right rig for the gig. You want to make sure you really have more. That you can always turn down what you got. You can't turn up what you don't got.
Gotcha.
See what I'm saying? So you don't want to paint yourself into a box where this should cut it, this will work, and then you get there. What is it a day thing? Like start at noon? Yeah.
Yeah, it's day. It's during the football.
Okay. So what, like 12 to 6 or something like that? Or whatever?
Yeah.
Let's just say, okay, so like you start at 12, everything's bumping. By 2 o'clock, you in 4th gear. By 3 o'clock, you're like, I'm out of gas. I can't do it. Parties lit, people having a good time, and you already in 4.5 gear, and you can't get 5 because the generator ain't gonna hold up for you. You know what I'm saying? That's what you don't want. That's what you don't want. And that's what I mean by right rig for the gig. Will the rig work? Probably. By all accounts, and even like you said, you're inheriting it and you're stepping up from the last guy. So obviously I don't know the details, but fine. It sounds like you're in the right direction. But what you don't want to do is paint yourself in that box and be like, oh snap, it's 3 o'clock, I got 3 more hours, I'm in 4th gear and I'm scared to go to 5th. Like with my big rig, I've yet to put that thing in 4th gear. Yet. 25,000 watts, I've not seen a clip light, I've not seen a red light. If I'm bumping yellow on my big rig, we got problems. Because people have been like, yo, this is awesome, but can you turn it down a little bit? And I built that rig for that, you know.
I hear a lot of people talk about the K-12s and K-12-2s.
Sure.
That's a lot of what we run.
Okay.
Can you share, because I think it will help several people in this room and some people that just left, unfortunately, that you should not be arraying those together. If you got 4 of those, you need to spread them out because they don't array well.
That's probably, and I would say that to a lot of point source boxes. You know, and again, that's nothing against QSC. I don't have QSC. Ironically, when I bought my first generation ELX boxes from EV, I was going to get the QSC. And I actually went EV because I liked, personally, the tone quality, the musicality of the EV versus the QSC. Not against QSC, just my personal preference. Obviously, QSC K-Series is super popular. A lot of DJs have them. Nothing against them. But to his point, if you're trying to cover a big space, especially outside, the boxes I have for my big rig, which are EV, they're made to be clustered. So they're a 60-degree spread, horizontal. I do cluster them in 3, you know what I'm saying? So they're like boom, 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 you know? So it's designed to be that way. But most of your active boxes, like you said, are not. When you couple them like that, even though they got a wedge shape, you know what I'm saying? They're really not designed to be put together. So that's when you get that comb filtering thing. You got that fuzzy. If you're on access, it kind of sounds a little bit, that's what the comb filtering is. You got frequencies fighting one another. So to his point, and it's not just QSC, it's just point source in general. You want to spread, and it's actually a good thing because if you got more boxes, you got more coverage. Because at the end of the day, when you're outside, that's what it really is. You got to have coverage. You know, with the mids and highs, you gotta have coverage. With bass, you gotta have presence. And unfortunately, when you're outside, you gotta have a lot of boxes because like in a space like this, sound reverberates, the carpets help, the ceiling help, you know what I'm saying? You know, that stuff, you know, the environment, you don't have to get all zen, but the environment does play into how the audio interacts with what you're presenting. When you're outside, you got nothing. You're in space, so it's all on you. And again, you don't want to paint yourself in a box where it's like, oh, I ain't got enough to do this, you know. So, yeah.
Good knowledge, man.
Yeah.
This is a great seminar.
Yeah. Are we done? Yeah. Oh my God, we're over. I'm so sorry, bro. I'm so sorry. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.